Hello everybody and welcome back to Jaffa Cooks, and today I'm going to show you how to make the perfect crusty rolls. They're going to be nice and crusty on the outside and fluffy on the inside. Okay, so really this is a no-brainer, very easy, no hands crusty roll recipe. And all I've got is 4 cups of flour. I've got some yeast, salt, basic olive oil and some tepid water. And without even touching the flour or the dough, I'm just going to mix it in. And with using minimum hands, just a couple of folds just to create some air, and then let it rise for about 40 minutes to an hour, and then I'm going to bake them, and then I'll show you what the crusty rolls look like. Let's mix the dry goods first. I've got 4 cups of flour. I'm going to mix in the salt first, sugar, the dried yeast, and I've got some flour which I'll use later on just for dusting, so I'm just going to put these to one side for now. And I've got some olive oil, so let me just mix in the dry goods first. And this is the only part that's probably the most difficult part, is just mixing everything together. Once you've mixed everything in, and a lot of it is just basically allowing it to rest and then fold. So I'm just going to pour in majority of the water, and then I'm just going to mix the dough. Whilst I'm doing this, do check out the descriptions on the bottom, and I'll show you how to create some nice fillings for these, for your kids, for their school dinners, if you do packed lunches, or if you're taking them to work. So keep following the recipe, and I'll see you back in a short while. Welcome back everybody. My ingredients are mixed and I've got my dough ready. Now if you're looking at the dough, it looks really wet, and you're thinking, is this right? Yes, it is right. For this recipe, you need the dough to be nice and wet based on what the ingredients I've told you. Now, what we're going to do, I've got some flour for dusting, but before I do that, I'm just going to show you, I've taken some additional water. This is just normal water. And the reason for that is I'm going to wet my hands to touch the dough so that my dry hands don't absorb the moisture, and it will refrain from a lot more dough sticking to it. So it's basically a technique that a lot of bakers use to make sure that the wet dough doesn't stick to their dry hands. So I'm just going to quickly dust some flour. And this recipe, or this dough shall I say, will require a little bit more than normal flour because it is quite wet. I'm just going to literally just wet my hands. And what we're going to do is basically remove the dough. So I've placed the dough onto the floured surface. I'm going to remove that for now. Keep that there because we're going to use it to return the dough back into there to rise for another hour. Without too much, I'm just going to, a little bit more flour. Without touching it too much, I'm just going to literally fold it a couple of times on a 45-degree angle. And that's just to really bring some structure in it. And you'll find that if you keep your surface dry and touch minimum amount to the actual dough, don't give too much, don't handle it too much, shall I say, the dough won't stick to your hands. Still very wet, but the objective is to basically touch it as little as possible. So I think by now that dough's ready. So I'm going to pop this back into the bowl, and I'm going to let it rest for about an hour. At the same time, I'm going to cover it with either some cling film or some a wet towel. Okay, so I've had a quick clean up. Just to show you, I've cling filmed the dough. I'm going to let it rise in the same bowl for about an hour, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I come back. See you shortly. Welcome back, everybody. So my dough is nicely risen. You can see pretty much it's nearly tripled the size of the original dough when it was left to rise. Now, this is where it becomes even simpler. What we're going to do now is just flour the surface, tip it over, flour the top side again. And what we're trying to do is minimize the impact of your hands touching wet dough, and then basically portion it and then flour our tray and then delicately put it onto the tray and then bake it for about 30 minutes, for about 230 degrees. So I'm going to literally do exactly what I've just said. I'm going to flour my surface, so a generous amount of flour because we don't want the dough sticking. I know you'll be tempted, I know my kids are sometimes tempted to take the bubbles out, but in this case, if I just show you, it's it's so airy. If you really did want to use a spatula just to ensure you've got maximum dough out and nothing's left inside, you could possibly use a spatula, but it should literally tip out without any problem at all. Just going to let it come out. You can see it's really stretchy and it's really wet as well. Taking some more flour, lightly flour the dough. I'm going to now cut my my dough into portions. You should be able to make 6 to 8 crusty buns out of this. Do lightly flour your cutter or your knife to ensure that the dough doesn't stick. Even when I floured, the dough is a bit sticky, so don't worry. Take some flour and just lightly dust your tray, and very carefully, and if you need to some of the dough may stick again, very lightly just pick up your dough, and I'm just going to place it onto my sheet. You'll see that I'm not rolling them, I'm not shaping them in any form. All I'm doing is I'm just dusting some flour and I'm just picking it up and put it straight onto the baking sheet. The point is to leave the original shape as is, and this should allow the bubbles to then form inside and create that nice fluffy softness inside whilst it becomes crusty on the outside. So I place my dough balls onto the tray. They're not formed in any shape, they're very rustic. That'll give them their uniqueness. So what I'm going to do now is bake them, and I'll come back and show you what they really look like. See you shortly. Welcome back, everybody. So my crusty buns are done. Nice and crispy on the outside and really fluffy on the inside. This is great, honestly. About an hour and a half to make bread rolls. Really nice. Some olive oil, balsamic vinegar. Any kind of filling will do. Have a go, let me know how it goes. Take care. Bye for now.